How are you doing? This is Alex, and on this episode we're going to be discussing good valets that turn bad. Now we're only going to focus it on one valet, but this one valet, it was actually pretty serious. And bottom line, I'm just going to say it turned into drugs, and we're just going to discuss the whole entire method on what happened with this particular valet. So this valet comes in, and he is actually referred to by his cousin, who also works with our company. He's a great valet, he has prior experience, and he did honestly a phenomenal job for probably about a year and a half, close to 2 years. One day we have a relationship, and I kind of keep an open door policy for all of my valets. If you have any issues, whether it's with the world, with what's going on with work or anything like that, my door is always open. Come in, have a seat, we'll discuss it. So one day this valet comes in and he says, Alex, I have a problem. Over the weekend, I was smoking weed with some of my friends, and I think it was laced with something. And I'm really paranoid right now. I feel like something's going on, and I don't think something's right. And he says, I think it was laced with something, and all these guys could do was laugh about it. So I said, you know what? Obviously, don't hang out with these people. I think he was younger, and he was trying to aspire to be whatever and hang out with these guys. And they were whatever. If they even did do it, then that's something that triggered off, unfortunately, I would say, paranoia in this valet. This valet at this point started freaking out. He was paranoid. Some of the valets would call me and say, hey, you know what? This valet doesn't have money in his pocket anymore. He's saying some type of monster crawled up his leg, cut a hole in his pocket, stole his money along with his car keys. It's to the point so much so where he has to now call his mom to bring a duplicate set of keys because he cannot find his car keys anymore because they fell out along with the money. So the valet's like, what do I do? The other valet. So I said, you know what? Don't worry about the money. I'll compensate you guys for it, but let's figure out what's going on. So we have a meeting the next week with our management team, and we decide this valet can no longer work by himself. He needs to always work with a second person because we don't know what's going on. At the same time, I'm speaking to his cousin. He's like, I don't know what's going on with him. I just know you're finding out the same stuff I do. So we were a little concerned about that overall. So what we decided to do was, as I said, not let him work anymore by himself. And then it got worse. And it got to the point where he started showing up late to his shifts, and he always had these off-the-wall reasons why. Now, the one day I got extremely concerned. He showed up with an AR-15 or AK-47 or whatever it was. It was some type of, I don't want to call it assault rifle because there's a big political term on that, but it was a type of long gun that I feel he shouldn't have had, especially in his mental state. And I asked him, how in the world did you get approved for this? And he said, as long as you're 21 and you have a valid Georgia driver's license, you're eligible to purchase this gun. At this point, I thought something was seriously wrong. And only 2 times in the company's history have we ever called the valet's parents. I know we shouldn't have, but in 2 cases, and I'll explain another case later on down the line. But we called this valet's mother and said, hey, you know what? We're deeply concerned about your valet. We feel he's being a little paranoid, and we think something's wrong with him, and it's getting to the point where we're about to suspend him until we feel he's back up to par to work valet parking again, because this is quite dangerous. We can't have him out in the field like this. And the mother's response was, yeah, she felt maybe something was wrong too, because one day he came home and he jumped in the shower naked and then ran out because he felt somebody was following him or chasing him. So I'm like, okay, at that point, that's it. I need to put this kid on timeout. And also at the same time, I felt it could have been drug related. The mother felt, no, she didn't think it was drug related. It might have been more psychosomatic or something like that, but she was going to get him investigated. Regardless, I had to cut ties. I didn't want this valet working anymore. Let's fast forward 3-4 more months forward. This valet shows up at work on a Sunday shift. And the head valet is like, hey, is this valet supposed to be here? I'm like, obviously not. He's terminated from the company. Well, they're like, well, he's here in full uniform. And when we terminate a person, we don't take their uniform away. We figure they either burn it or throw it away or something like that. We've actually seen our uniforms pop up at Goodwill, which is actually pretty funny. But this valet still had his uniform. So he came to work dressed 3 to 4 months later, bumping music loudly in the parking lot. As well, he started doing donuts, and he had an Infiniti G35 or something like that. And we're like, that's it. So the restaurant manager calls me, and I say, hey, this guy doesn't work for us anymore. I have no idea why he's here. So they told him to leave, otherwise they were going to call the police. I get a call maybe about 2 hours later, 3 hours later. The head valet is like, hey, I was running down to Starbucks to grab some coffee, and we noticed the valet that got kicked off the lot is now listening to music out of his car, dancing in front of the McDonald's. Something is really wrong with him. So this is Sunday afternoon. I'm like, okay, let me go down there and see what's up with this guy. So I go down, I park across the street, and I watch this guy for almost an hour. I thought I took pictures. I can't find them. But anyway, I didn't even think those pictures would be appropriate to show. But he was out there dancing, and this further supported that there was something going on with this valet. I called his mother once again, and I think that's at the point where she denied she didn't think anything was wrong with it. That was 2018. We never heard from him again. Fast forward, 2020, March, we get a phone call from him. He's like, hey, and I didn't recognize, again, his number's deleted out of my phone, but I recognized the voicemail. He's like, hey, I'm dealing with some of your valets. They don't speak English properly. And one of my valets he has a French accent. He speaks English, obviously, perfectly, but he has a French accent. And he was starting to get belligerent, but I didn't know where he was. So I had to call all the restaurants at night talking to my valets. Hey, is so-and-so here acting weird? They're like, no. So I call another one. Then I called another one. And I finally reached the restaurant where this valet was. So I spoke to the head valet down there at that moment, if you're following everything. And I said, hey, is there a guy down there acting real weird? He says, how do you know? Regardless. I said, what's going on? He's like, he's sitting here yelling at us, saying we damaged his car, and we haven't even parked his car. And he's yelling at customers as they're coming out of the restaurant. I said, I hate to tell you this, but call the police. This guy is not wound tight 100%. The elevator doesn't go to the top floor. So they call the police. The police come out, and they talk to him. And the guy was actually inside the restaurant eating, and he came out. So he literally had a right to be in the parking lot. So they asked him to leave, and he left. I start getting voicemails from this guy saying that I owe him $10,000, $25,000 because an attorney I recommended took money from him, and he was going to handle it if I didn't give him the money back. And I didn't really know what he meant. Then I got another phone call. Then he sent me an email that was a Wachovia, which is a bank that used to be here in Atlanta, but got taken over. They got purchased actually by Wells Fargo back in probably 2016. So taking over a bank that was probably 4 years earlier, but he's sending me to Wells Fargo saying, here, send the money to this account. And I'm like, obviously. So I didn't respond to anything. And then I started getting threatening phone calls saying he was going to deal with me if I didn't give him the money. I alerted the police just to put it on record, but nonetheless, this valet is not wound tight. Now, probably a month ago, I get another phone call, and now I'm starting to realize it's his mother. I think his mother's on drugs too. I could assume something. I don't want to say that, but something's wrong with her too, because this is a random call in the middle of the night saying that we owed her money and they wanted their money now. So again, I put this on file. It's all documented. I feel extremely bad that this valet has gone through this because he was an excellent valet. And like I said, I had no issues with him. But all of a sudden, when you get into this stuff and the drugs really start to affect you, I don't know if it was the drugs or I don't know if it was something that was laced with the marijuana that he took that triggered his paranoia, but it's now set in. His cousin no longer works with us, but I did call his cousin to find out what happened. And he said the same exact thing, that he's been doing the same thing to him. He's been basically calling all the relatives and yelling at him and screaming at him and just off the wall stuff. And I think it's most unfortunate. I hope it wouldn't have to happen. I hope he wouldn't have to do it. And I really hope that he gets help soon. But these are some of the stories that we have. And here's what happens. Over time, I do care about my valets. We're not a huge company. We're not thousands of people. We're less than 100 people. And I do care for my valets because without them, the company wouldn't be anything. So I want to make sure they're okay. But if it's something beyond and out of my control, then I honestly have to step back and wish them the best. Anyway, I know this is not the type of video that you guys are usually used to, but these are some of the ups and downs that we have to deal with in the valet parking business. Obviously, if you like it, definitely subscribe. We have more stories and incredible other things that are going on. Amazing stories also at the same time. And I got a lot of stuff planned for you guys. So thank you for watching. I'll see you next time.